And so we are back now, YouTube, in compliance with that. All right, very good. So Ms. Shepherd, you were in the process of cross-examining Ms. Desai, and we reached a little stopping place, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Desai, just to very briefly review the reimbursement claims, I think this is a little bit of a less common of the reimbursement claims under the family code. Did Mr. Schultz's separate estate pay a liability owed by the community estate?
Yes, it did.
And if Mr. Schultz's separate estate had not paid, that would have been owed by the community estate?
That's correct. It would have been a liability of the community estate.
Okay. And if it had not been paid, and so would you agree that the community estate was thus enriched by Mr. Schultz's separate funds paying off those community liabilities?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. As of December 31st, your firm was owed the amount of $6,244.38. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And did you provide me with an estimation of what you believed your trial preparation and testimony would cost as well?
Yes, I estimated at most $2,500 through trial testimony.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So, Ms. Schultz, it's totally up to you. If you'd like to ask questions to this witness, you're welcome to do so now. But again, remember to put your lawyer hat on, okay? You may proceed if you wish.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Hi, good afternoon. I just have a couple questions I was curious about. How were you hired? Were you hired directly from Mr. Schultz or from his attorney?
I was engaged by Mr. Schultz directly.
Okay, thank you. And I was confused on the question that she asked you about the invoice and the charges. I'm sorry, could you review that again just for clarification on what the charges were that you invoiced?
The total, are you asking total charges, or I believe Ms. Shepherd asked me about the last outstanding invoice?
The last outstanding invoice and then the total?
I don't have the exact number for the total, but my memory is that I have billed through my last invoice just under $20,000 to trace the separate property and to value Mr. Schultz's business. The invoice that was pulled up a little while ago, that was my last outstanding invoice.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schultz. Ms. Shepherd, do you have any additional questions for this witness?
I have one. Yes, very briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Desai, did Mr. Schultz sign your engagement letter on September 25th of 2023?
Yes, he did.
Were you informed at the time that you were hired that you were hired for the purpose of trial testimony and that settlement negotiations had broken down?
Yes.
Nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Schultz, do you have anything else for this witness?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Oh, okay, very good. Ms. Shepherd, you may call your next witness.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Desai. I will call Ms. Schultz.
Ms. Shepherd, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Schultz, Chase turns 18 this year, is that correct?
Yes.
When is he projected to graduate?
Well, if it's 24 to 25, 27.
Okay. And is there a reason that he's graduating in 2027 rather than in the year following his 18th birthday? Like, was he held back at any point or anything?
He was in the 4th grade.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You are a licensed social worker, is that correct?
Yes.
And you still currently keep up with your license, correct?
Yes.
You agree that Mr. Schultz has provided funds for you and Chase throughout the pendency of this divorce, correct?
Yes.
And you haven't worked receiving an income for the last several years, correct?
Correct.
You also have not applied for any social work positions in the last, since the divorce was filed in 2021, correct?
No, I've been busy traveling, or we've been relocating for Michael's work for the past few years.
And so you had not applied for any jobs during that time, correct?
Because we've been traveling, relocating. It's hard to do when you relocate.
The mortgage is listed in the home that you're currently in is listed in both of your names, correct?
Yes, it is.
And you have seen the proposed disposition of issues that was filed and that has been presented here today, correct?
You know, I've seen it. It's on here. I could look line by line, and if you have a question on it, I'm not an accountant. I'm not, but yes, it's here.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so you understand that Mr. Schultz is requesting that as far as all of the assets and debts by the community estate with his reimbursement and separate property claim, that you receive 70% of the community estate.
That he's requesting for 70%.
That's right. You understand that that's what he's requesting, correct?
And I don't agree with that. Mhm.
Okay. You don't agree that you receive 70%?
No, I thought you said that he's asking for 70%.
No, that he's requesting that you receive
Oh,
that.
I see. Yeah. Right. May I ask well, okay. So I see that says to the wife, 70%, to husband, 30%. Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I also know previously, well, okay, go ahead. I'm getting confused. It's late here.
No problem. As far as the requests related to Chase, are you in agreement that decision making about as it relates to Chase until he turns 18 should be made jointly between you and Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Okay. And you agree that you should be the conservator with the exclusive right to receive child support and the exclusive right to designate Chase's primary residence within the continental United States?
Yes, I don't object to that.
Okay. And you're currently covering Chase on health and dental insurance, is that correct?
Mm.
Okay. And so you understand that we're requesting that you provide us with the documentation about the expense as it relates to Chase so that Mr. Schultz can reimburse you?
Yeah, I can provide it to him at any time. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. So at this point in the game, Ms. Schultz, you can do one of two things. You can let me just ask before I get to that. Ms. Shepard, do you have any other witnesses after her?
I don't, Your Honor.
Okay, so Ms. Schultz, at this point, one of two things can happen. You can either, as part of the cross-examination that you just had, you could just testify, or we can close and testify. But why don't you go on? I think maybe the thing to do, so that if there's any follow-up by Ms. Shepard, here's what I think works best. I think it's a little weird to ask yourself questions. You know what I mean?
Actually, I do it all the time. No.
Well, yeah, no, I get it. And I probably do too. I totally get it. It's a little weird. I think maybe it's best for you to just tell me what you think I need to know about this case, because your husband is asking, for a 70-30 split in your favor, has given you essentially to live wherever you want to with your son. So what is it? I mean, what is it that I need to know before I make a decision in this case that you think, Judge, you're just not understanding. You need to know this. So what is that?
And I'm sorry, so I might need to see that sheet again. I will be honest. So thank you for asking me.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Shepard. As Michael knows, I am not a person who really, and maybe this has been my downfall. Although I haven't worked outside of the home for a few years, it's been for a very good reason, as Michael knows. It's a very difficult, what is the bottom? I can't go further down. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. Kind of maybe to the bottom. I'm more of a bottom line person. Yeah. Is there a page 3 of 3? Okay. Oh, I see how you do. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, maybe the middle, yeah. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you, ma'am. So Your Honor, can I click on you and will it open up? So, Your Honor, well, thank you for your patience and not having an attorney present. Maybe I could start there. Well, I'm not allowed to talk about that, right? Okay.
No, the only thing I want to know is it appears to me that your husband and his attorney have come up with a plan that favors you pretty well. I mean, typically we're looking at 50-50 splits on the estate, but we're looking at 70-30 here. So that sounded pretty good to me, but I don't really know what it is that's wrong with that plan. So there must be something or you wouldn't be here as an opponent. So this is your chance to tell me, what is it, Judge Eiserloh? You got to know this before you make a decision. What is that thing? And
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start off with this because this is probably what's most important to hear.
okay.
The most important thing to hear is
Mhm.
that this is not about the finances, and I am completely dishonored by a man that I've been with for 30 years.
Yeah.
So in the sheets, do we see anything that covers 30 years? No, ma'am. With all due respect to the court and to everyone here,
Mhm.
Ms. Shepherd is a fine attorney. There's no doubt about it. I respect that. And so what I want to say is that, and she's doing a fine job. What I'm here to say is that I am a mother of a child who was hurt by this man sitting here in court today. So great job on showing spreadsheets and talking numbers and paying someone a huge amount of money to share a lot of numbers. Great job. Bravo.
Okay.
But we're talking here, we're not here. Well, I guess we are here to split property. Great. And we could have done that. And I would have done that, as I told Michael. I would have signed whatever he had given me, and we wouldn't have been before you, Your Honor.
Okay.
As I told him, if he had apologized to my son, I was asking him for an apology for hurting my son. That's what I wanted, and he wouldn't give it to me.
Mhm.
Okay, so I understand we're in a court of law. We're not talking about an apology. We're talking about legal matters. I get it. But since you asked me, it sounds perfectly fine, 70-30 split. How do you put a number on wrecking your child's life? How do you put a number or something on possibly when Ms. Shepherd asks, well, how can what happened about his education? Well, you're a licensed clinical social worker. Let me say, we would need much more time than the court could afford to talk about the damage, the emotional, the psychological damage done to my son. Now, Michael can have his time to respond. I'm sorry for getting a little hot and heavy. I didn't bring my son to testify today, Michael, because even though we're here, I don't want my son to be here, one, to protect him, no, two, because I don't want the court or anybody else to hear what he has to say about you. I don't. And Michael, I also don't want to talk about you about things that are going to harm you, because I do want your business to be successful. I don't, as you called me greedy, and I know I'm the least greedy person. I'm a freaking social worker. Excuse my language, Your Honor. I am a social worker. You try to get me to buy expensive cars. I don't want it. I drive your mother's old used car because my Buick kept breaking down and she was worried I'd get stuck on the freeway. So, which we still have. We still have that. I just paid a $4,000 bill on that car because it needed repair and the light's still coming on. So listen, we're not here because I'm greedy, Michael. I didn't want more money out of you. I never did. I wanted you to apologize for my son because you hurt him when you cheated on him in front of him.
Okay. All right.
That's what I wanted.
So what you're wanting, it's what you're wanting, Ms. Schultz. Let me try to summarize here. What you're wanting is you're not, the split is not the issue here. What you're wanting is an apology from your husband pertaining to your child. Now, we have not had, the door's not open on that, as they say. But let me ask Ms. Shepherd a question here, if you may. Ms. Shepherd, this young man is under the age of 18 for a few more months now, until November. Has there been any thought to any counseling on reconciliation, anything, just a moment, Ms. Schultz. Anything through Travis County DRO or something of that nature? Have we had any thought to that?
So the problem with the Travis County DRO is they will not, so yes, I did look into it. They're not able to service anyone outside of the state of Texas as it relates to a child because of licensing issues. So when there's a therapist in one state and they're not licensed in the other state, they do not believe that they can practice in both scenarios. I'll say, Your Honor, we frankly didn't get into with Mr. Schultz's testimony the nuances of why he believes that his relationship is at.
I have a sense of that, and there's no need to really go into that.
Right. Yeah.
I think that the question though is, is there, obviously some reconciliation needs to occur. It may be after the young man reaches the age of 18 and can make up his own decisions on things. It sounds like you have explored one of my favorite options here in Travis County, which is Travis County DRO. I think they do excellent work, and of course the price is certainly right, which is nice too. Are there any other options that you've looked at on some sort of rapprochement between father and son?
The therapy problem is not specific to the DRO, but more specific to the licensing. So as far as like family therapy is concerned, that is a problem across the board as it relates to licensing location of the individuals involved. So that's part of the problem. And then just with what Mr. Schultz was requesting, his hope is that once there is some separation from both parents, that Mr. Schultz will be able to have a relationship with his child when there's some more level of independence.
That might be the only thing we can do here. All right, so let me go back to Ms. Schultz, or let me ask you, Ms. Shepard. Ms. Schultz is your witness. Do you have any questions for her?
Do I have any questions for?
No, I asked Ms.
Shepard.
Ms. Shepard if she has any questions for you since you just finished your testimony, or you finished, Ms. Shepard.
I just briefly, Your Honor, I'm trying not to, I'm walking a fine line, but Ms. Schultz, as far as the reason we weren't able to come to an agreement, as far as the overall, were there additional requests that you were making outside of a request for an apology to your child without telling me what any of those requests were? Were there additional requests?
I wouldn't know if you tell me what it is, I'm straightforward, honest. If you want to tell me what it is, I'll say yes or no. Are you talking about the condo request?
No, I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, that's probably a good idea. I do think sometimes trial work is an exercise.
Oh, well, Your Honor, may I ask a question? Since I rose my hand and said I would be honest, I do have a question. Am I able to now ask or refer to what Michael and I were working on previously that I couldn't bring up before?
Yes, settlement agreement or settlement negotiations they are not appropriate discussions for trial generally.
I thought that's what she was asking.
Very unusual circumstances. So,
okay, I thought that's what she was asking you.
So let me just ask you, or let me just mention at this point, Ms. Shepard has put on your husband's case. Do you rest, Ms. Shepard?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Shepard, rest. Now, Ms. Schultz, you have made a statement. This is your opportunity. Do you have any witnesses that you wish to call in this case?
I think, well, my son did say that he did want to testify. I can bring him if he wants to, because I do get the feeling from maybe the attorney and that there's some kind of, well, my son, after he turns 18, maybe then he can reconcile with his father. I am not the impediment to reconciliation. The impediment is I have tried, actually my son in therapy was upset at me for the longest time for trying to say positive things about his father. And he would get rageful sometimes towards me, and that lasted a very long time. I don't want to be the reason that people are saying, Paige, you're the parent that is causing this friction. I am not the parent that is causing the friction. He is the parent that cause a friction. He's the parent that is not trying to communicate with his son. My son has been actually wanted so badly to testify today. And I said, Chase, no, because that's not the place probably to, he's very angry.
Yeah.
And
Here's
it
my
has
problem
nothing to
is-
do with me.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I do. And let me just tell you now, this is your decision if you want to put him on. I will say that I think that sometimes testifying in court is pretty traumatic. And what I have heard from you, you can testify to. This is not hearsay. I mean, you're telling me your observations as his mother. And so probably the testimony that you want to get in with him, you've already gotten in. And I do think this is just my observation as a mother myself. I think that it's easier for us parents sometimes to process this type of thing than a child. And if you want to put him on to prove to me that really your husband was the problem and not you, that's just a fact issue. And I don't know that we necessarily need to have that out. I think if you want to do it, we're going to let you do it. I will say I think that that what we're doing here is hard on people. I mean, I guarantee you the minute this Zoom call is over, you're going to sit in that corner exhausted and sip your herb tea and put your feet up and think, my goodness, what did I just go through? I feel like I've been hit by a truck. Mr. Schultz is going to feel the same way. I don't know with the 17-year-old who's, you said, is back in Virginia and has struggled a little bit. Just from a mother perspective, maybe not the best thing. But if you want to put him on, we're going to let you do it. Okay? So how do you wish to proceed?
I'm going to say no.
Yeah,
I'm
think
going to say no because I've always said I'll protect my son. So I'll say no.
okay. I think that's personally just as you know, as a judge here, but also taking off my judge hat and putting on my mom hat. I think that's not a bad decision. You've already told me what you want me to know, which is, look, they're trying to point the finger at me and saying I'm the bad parent. I'm telling you, it's not me, it's him, right? That's what I need to know.
Well, I do want to say this, Your Honor. I'm not trying to say that I'm without fault or anything like that, but I am here to say that, comments from Michael today don't paint the picture of everything.
Okay, that's good for me to know.
But I also feel that I got bamboozled by not having an attorney, but that was what the agreement between he and I was.
No.
It would be one attorney. And so he said, well, then we're going to court and you're going to come out with less than what we had. So that's what's happening.
I don't know. I will say this, you got a pretty good 70-30 split's a pretty good deal. Okay. So I wouldn't,
but I'm not getting I'm not now, if we're talking about it, I have no maintenance, no alimony to me. So after 30 years. So Michael is getting what he wants. And I'm not saying what could be said, but that's fine.
All right. Very good. So you have any other witnesses to call, Ms. Schultz?
Not today, I don't.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. So evidence is now closed in this case. Ms. Shepard, would you like to make a closing statement?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Yes. Thank you. I believe, Your Honor, based off the testimony today, the bulk of the child-related provisions that need to be contained in the final decree of divorce are agreed upon. As far as the just a couple of logistical spreadsheet for the court to understand what I, as the lawyer, did on the spreadsheet is the separate property portion of the home is put here above the line because Ms. Schultz would be awarded this house. So it is in both columns because normally this would be a reimbursement from or a payment from her separate estate to his separate estate after the fact. He doesn't want it to be in the form of a payment, though, just that she be awarded it, but that he received that credit. So that's the reason for how it's displayed on the spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, Your Honor, we are requesting that the division as set forth in the proposed disposition of issues be award of the court of the division of the marital estate and the confirmation of separate property. I think that we went through all of the specific documents and testimony of the expert, but we are requesting that even if the court does take anything under advisement today, that the divorce be rendered as of today, Your Honor.
All right, let me ask you a question, Ms. Shepherd, in terms of, well, hang on a second. Let me get back to Ms. Schultz. Ms. Schultz, do you have any closing statements you'd like to give?
Yes, I think after 30 years of marriage, and with Michael having $1 million in his trust fund and nothing else to his name, and there's no consideration to, there's only a focus on this condo here. We had other homes prior to this, of which I chose, and there were big investment, there were big profits made on those homes, of which went into community ownership. And so, but there's no consideration given to when I was not working, by the way. So I guess we could count that as maybe income because there were $200,000 plus of profits. But, we won't talk about that today. So, in terms of, because everybody cares about what happens to Chase, Chase does have a lot of needs. And I have been the primary caregiver for him pretty much from the day he was adopted from Ukraine. And just to correct the record, when Ms. Shepherd started, I don't think you, if I remember, I think you mentioned Maryland, of which we were residents there for 10 years. And it's important to mention Maryland because it's where we started off with Chase. And where I really stuck by Michael when he really went through a very difficult time with an incident. So I want to say that, which I may need to follow up with. So what I'm saying here and now is that after 30 years of standing by somebody through some very, very difficult things and always being the rock of this family for Michael. So these constant, mentions of, well, you're not working, right? Well, in America, actually, it's okay to take some time off when your child needs you because they have complex PTSD, they're diagnosed, and also diagnosed with ADHD. It's okay to take the time off to make sure that your kid's okay because there's a lot of issues going on. He has a therapist, but thank you, that he likes a lot and that he's finally comfortable with, and he's finally out of his depression and not wanting to harm himself anymore. So that's a big win for us. That's my top priority. And for the last 2 years, sometimes I would stay up all night to make sure he was okay because Michael wouldn't talk to me because I wouldn't call the police and put him in jail. So I have been this child's everything for the past 2 years. The thing about having my son visit his father, I asked Michael to take Chase for a little while. Michael said no, he couldn't take him for a while because I was scared about where Chase, the people he was hanging around with. And I'm glad he didn't because it wouldn't have been good for my son. There is so much complexity in this case that, the court doesn't have time. I understand it, but the 70-30 split, fine, whatever, I'll make it work. However, if we have to sell the condo, so we can, whatever it is, we'll do. I can obviously make it work for my son and I. But this man owes me, at this point, I'm upset. This man does owe me maintenance for 30 years. And there's been there were times I worked when he was in school. I paid all the bills, but we won't discuss that. We'll just discuss what happened in the last 2 years.
Let me ask Ms. Schultz. So what you're saying is, look, you don't want the 70-30 split. You're wanting spousal maintenance.
I want spousal maintenance. If you want to go this route, Michael, I'm going to ask for spousal maintenance. We were almost there. And you know what? You messed it up. Don't know why. Maybe because, there's other people involved. This child in 30 years, I never once cheated on you. I had to take your name off of a website that you were.
Okay, that's enough. Let's just make
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
We need to kind of keep within
Yes,
the
ma'am.
bounds of it. Okay, so here's my thinking on it, guys. Let me go back to Ms. Shepherd. in terms of the 70-30 split, so Ms. Schultz would get the condo. What type of liquid assets does she have to support herself and Chase through these? I know there's some child support for the next few months. Chase turns 18 in November. What kind of assets do we have to support them in their liquid?
Yes, Your Honor. So in this proposal, it's 43,000 in a joint checking, 8,800 in a joint savings, and then $180,000 in a joint brokerage account that is liquid.
Okay. So it's,
180,000. What happened? Where's it? We had.
Objection, Your Honor, to.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah, we're trying to figure this out. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
So again, so it's the liquid assets in here, or it's that kind of middle column that I'm looking at. It starts at the 43,000.
That's correct, Your Honor.
You're going to highlight them for me,
Yeah,
and ending with the 180,000 in the Schwab account. Is that right?
that's right. So this would be the liquid assets that
Okay.
she would receive.
All right. And then plus the condo.
Right.
All right. Is that the condo? I'm trying to get my eyes on it. Yeah, the condo is there. Okay. All right. I'm going to do this. I'll grant the divorce today. I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time with this spreadsheet. And see, I do understand Ms. Schultz is making a request for spousal maintenance. And that's something I need to know a little bit more or think a little bit more about.
Ma'am, can I ask
Your Honor,
Mm-mm,
on the-
one at a time, please. Let me start with Ms. Shepherd and then I'll get to you, Ms. Schultz.
Yes, ma'am.
and Your Honor, I do believe, and I can provide briefing on this topic. It hadn't come up until closing statements, but based off of the testimony of Ms. Schultz, I don't believe she's rebut the presumption about ability to meet her own reasonable needs and seeking due diligence in doing so. And so I do not believe she's been able to rebut the presumption against spousal maintenance. I also don't believe she's been able to provide any evidence today of what her minimum reasonable needs are that would need to be provided.
Yeah, I agree with you, but let's look at the briefing on that. And I do, but also, I mean, 70-30 split is, and there are some liquid assets there. It's very generous. It would give her time to find a job, which is more than we often see in these cases. All right, Ms. Schultz, what else did you have for me today?
Well, I don't understand what the attorney just said, but on the spreadsheet, ma'am, where it says the wife is 70 and then it's split 70-30, is the account 431? Is that what was in the account is 431? And then a 70-30 split is the next two columns over?
I can't see it right now, so,
Okay.
okay. So what they're saying, if you
Yeah,
look at,
the Charles Schwab at 431 market value. And is that where the 70-30 split is, 180 and then 251? Is that where, is that how you read it?
well, unfortunately, I'm not in the position of advising litigants.
Oh, no, I'm just,
here.
I was just trying to ask if that's how the columns are reading out. So it's 431 is the net value. And so 180 to the wife and 251 to the husband.
So I can state, Your Honor, for the court that we are requesting that the bottom line division be 70% of the overall community estate to Ms. Schultz and 30% of the overall community estate to Mr. Schultz, if that's helpful.
That was my understanding. Yeah, just like that. Okay, so it's that, see, it's an overall community estate. And I think what's a little unusual in this is that separate property tracing is that Mr. Schultz has a substantial amount of separate property. The community is maybe a little smaller than one would anticipate. Okay, folks, I think we've looked about this about as much as we can. I'm going to go on and grant the divorce today. We'll spend a little more time on that spreadsheet and get something back to you all very soon. Okay, and Ms. Shepherd, if you would like to provide a little bit of briefing on that, I don't think that that spousal maintenance issue, I think that would be helpful. Okay, very good. Well, there's nothing else. You all may be excused. The divorce is granted, and we'll get you something on that division of property relatively soon. Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.